Oh my gosh. I'm gonna start talking about David Berkowitz. So, like I said,
Then he decided to take the .45 caliber machine gun, commit mass murder at a Long Island disco, and fight it out with Suffolk police in a blaze of glory.
He claimed that one demon who came to him in the form of a black dog named Sam, was telling him, go out and kill.
What do you want? I want you to go out and kill. Kill!
Hey guys, so I look like poo right now because I'm halfway done my makeup. I haven't seen you guys in a while, well, since a couple weeks ago. I took last Sunday off, but I'm back and I'm here to talk about a murderer once again. I just felt last weekend I needed to not be in front of the camera and just say screw it, basically. If you're from Canada, especially Ontario, you would know that we're still affected by the lockdown. For all my friends that are not from here, hi. Yeah, we're still struggling. Canada is not the country I've always remembered it to be. We are so behind. It is still lockdown here, so it's a really depressing time. Things have been repetitive for honestly over a year now. We see the rest of the world opening up and it's like we're frozen in time. It's a big thing, and that's kind of why I haven't been feeling motivated. And last week I was just like, I need a break. Like I said, I'm back. So, hello everyone. Talking about all that with this curler in my hair made me look like just let myself go. But I don't go out in public like that. That's just to bring some volume to my bangs or whatever's going on here. Anyways, today I'm going to be talking about the famous Son of Sam. He was one of the first murderers I feel like I heard about. David Berkowitz. Son of Sam was his nickname because that's what the killings were called, and that's what he would call himself in letters. He was allegedly told by a demon dog in his visions, named Sam, to kill these people. The reason I'm talking about David Berkowitz this week is because I just finished another documentary on Netflix. You might have seen it's trending. This documentary was called Son of Sam, Descent into Darkness. I wasn't sure what to expect. I just thought it was about David Berkowitz. It's 4 episodes and it kind of gives you a different perspective on what went down with all these murders. I'm just gonna talk about David Berkowitz, but I'll give you a little rundown in case you're planning on watching it for yourself. So Netflix, they like to do conspiracy theories or things that people don't know about, which I think is pretty cool. Making a Murderer, the Cecil Hotel, which I also did a video on. But this is actually about Maury, who was a reporter back in the day. All of these murders went down in the 70s. He got so involved with this case and figuring it out. He was seriously obsessed his entire life. He lived, breathed, and even died this case. Netflix documentary doesn't only talk about David Berkowitz, it tells you what Maury thought was going on. He didn't say that David Berkowitz didn't do anything or didn't murder anyone. He hypothesized that there were more than one murderer, that he worked with others, and that the Son of Sam murders were part of a cult. The story goes on, and there is a lot of evidence to back up this theory, but Netflix, they leave you hanging. I guess you have to decide for yourself. That's the whole point of it. When I heard about the Son of Sam murders, I was way too young to even think anything of it. I just knew that he was a killer back in the 70s. And I heard about him first because my parents actually went to see the movie Summer of Sam. I believe it came out in 1999. I didn't watch that until I was older, so then I fully understood the story, but I remember them telling me what the movie was about, because you know, you're a kid and you're nosy. Sorry, I'm doing my eyebrows here. Got some on the wall. What I'm gonna say about the Hollywood movie, it actually gave a pretty good story about what went on. And I found the movie interesting and it kept my attention because, you know, it's Hollywood and there's different storylines. But that was an easy way for me to kind of understand the David Berkowitz case. All right. Oh my gosh. Done my makeup and I'm back in my spot. I'm gonna start talking about David Berkowitz. So, like I said, First, the AC turns on while I'm starting to film. David Berkowitz was a serial killer or murderer who pleaded guilty to 8 murders back in the 70s. He would just go up to people and shoot them. Mostly young women. I would say teens or early 20s, that was his target. Some were couples, people making out in vans, you know, having a romantic moment. He would just go up to people and shoot them. So people in New York City, which is where this happened, they were living in fear. They didn't want to leave their houses, especially the women. Berkowitz basically started the biggest manhunt in New York City police history. He was taunting them, sending letters, and they couldn't figure out who this guy was. You do figure out a lot of this in the documentary. They tell you what had happened, so they give a better explanation than I'm probably giving you. A lot of people who knew David Berkowitz, neighbors and such, they thought he was a nice guy, quiet guy. A lot of people were shocked to find out that he was the killer. One thing that was very strange in the Netflix documentary is that the drawings of who they thought the murderer was, like the composite drawings from the police, usually they kind of look like the murderer, at least a little bit. None of these looked like David Berkowitz. People drawing them were either really bad, or the people describing them were really bad, or there were more people involved. That part really did stump me. At the time, he was 24 when he was charged. It was 1977. He was working as a postal delivery man. So the pattern was he generally targeted women with long hair. The victims were usually pretty young women, and I'll just read a list of his victims. Obviously, I can't remember all of them. First, an unknown female. Then another woman, Michelle, in 1975, but she survived. The first one survived as well, so some of them did survive. They were stabbed or shot. Then Donna Loria, who was 18, was in 76, and Jody, who was 19, was wounded. Carl De Niro was wounded. I think he was shot in the head and he survived. He's actually in this documentary. DeMasi, wounded. Christine in 1977, who was 26, was killed. Virginia was killed, another girl, she was 19. And Valentina and Alexander, a couple in 1977 who were 18 and 20 years old. Another man and his girlfriend who was 17. They were both wounded. Then there was Stacy Moskowitz and Bobby Violante. The guy was 20 years old, he survived, and Stacy was murdered. And they were the final attack in the summer of 1977. So they were all very close together. That's why the movie is called Summer of Sam. So after his arrest, Berkowitz was saying that he was hearing voices. It was the devil telling him to do it. And he said this stuff in his letters too. He claimed that demons, one demon who came to him in the form of a black dog named Sam, was telling him, go out and kill.
I thought I killed you, Mr. Black Dog. You won! I want you to go out and kill. Kill! Kill! Kill!
Also learn about the connection with this dog. I believe he killed the neighbor's dog, and the neighbors ended up having a connection to this web of murders. Like I said, this documentary goes in depth with the cults back then, which is also another explanation for the David Berkowitz murders, but you would have to watch that yourself, because right now I am not making any sense. First time when he stabbed his first victim in 75, like I said, she survived, but that's when he said the voices started. He's still in jail to this day, but when they showed interviews from the 90s later on and he's older, you're like, wow, he seems so well spoken. Like, you would never guess. It's just strange to me. You see these guys later in interviews in jail. Sometimes you wouldn't even expect them to be killers. He moved to Yonkers, a suburb of New York, in 76, and I believe this is the place they ended up arresting him. And he also started to see his neighbors as demons, apparently. So we don't know why David Berkowitz was the way he was. We don't know he was adopted and was raised by his adoptive parents. He also served in the army, but he didn't have particularly traumatic childhood, as we know anyways. But like I said, he was apparently schizophrenic. They still ended up saying he was mentally fit to stand trial, although there was some arguments with that. But at the same time, he seemed to enjoy the celebrity status that came along with this manhunt that he'd carried on for so long. He served in the army. He could have had some PTSD from there, but they don't really talk about that. He just seemed like your average guy, but as the years went on, after he served in the military, it said he became more and more of a loner as time went on. And this is when he said he started to hear voices, which led him to shooting these people. People stopped going to discos and bars, which you see in the Summer of Sam movie. People were scared to go out because these shootings were happening so frequently and they were so random. Like I said, all these drawings, the composite sketches from the police and the victims, none of them really looked like him, at least in my opinion. So it took them a while to find him. But I'm gonna tell you how they found David Berkowitz. So David Berkowitz kept writing these letters to the police. So they had all this to go on, but they didn't know where to find him. He was just basically taunting them at this point. They knew that he was gonna strike again. People were already panicking because of all these murders going on. And when it was realized that it was almost the anniversary of his first murder, people got more scared and just didn't want to go out that night at all. He didn't end up striking that night, but he did strike 2 days later. A few days later, there was a major break in the case, and it was when an eyewitness came forward to the police and she said that she had seen a man with a gun in her neighborhood right before the shots were fired. She said that 2 police officers were also writing parking tickets in the area.
It was Berkowitz's car that led police to him. It had been ticketed for being parked by a fire hydrant on the night of the most recent murder, just a few blocks from the murder scene.
You remember that the police were there giving out tickets in the area? They actually connected one of those tickets to Berkowitz's parked car. He was living in Yonkers at the time, and police were also investigating Berkowitz because he had filed a harassment complaint with one of his neighbors. And this is how they end up connecting the dots and putting 2 and 2 together. They find out that it's him. They know his address because of this harassment complaint, and I believe they look up his license and stuff. So they end up arresting him at his home. Once they matched everything to David Berkowitz, he admitted to the murders, and he seemed like he was happy to do so. He wanted everyone to know that he was the son of Sam. In the documentary, like I said, I wasn't going to talk much about it. It's pretty interesting because it does have stuff that I've never heard about, and you don't have to believe it. I still believe that David Berkowitz is obviously the murderer. There could have been other people involved, though. This time back then was after the Charles Manson stuff, so cults were still super popular. They were falling off a bit, and you know, there were all these symbols that were in his letters and his writings and stuff. They just kind of connected it to the fact that he was in a cult. And his group of friends, in later interviews, he did admit to this. At the end of the day, I definitely think he is son of Sam, David Berkowitz. I do think he committed those murders. Maury Terry and that documentary, it kind of made me wonder if there are other people involved. Either way, David Berkowitz is still in jail. He had a heart attack, but he's still alive. I don't know if I told that story very well today. I feel like I was a bit scattered. Let me know what you guys want to see next Sunday, or if you want to see another video on a murder, let me know who. I appreciate all of you for tuning in. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you all next Sunday. Bye!